Welcome, everybody. It's going to be a good show, guys. It is Broadcast Team Alpha. It is the Sunday show on Wednesday, and we bring you cutting-edge conversations while exploring the quantum possibilities. And we have a really interesting show for you tonight. We are, as always, going to review a sci-fi series or movie. But in the meantime, we're just going to have a conversation tonight. My co-host Aage Nost, easier for me to say, and Tom Schaefer. We're going to talk about things tonight that we have noticed are kind of trending. So we're going to talk about Ascension, the science behind Ascension. We're going to talk about Ascension symptoms. We're going to talk about the Matrix and wars in space and a bunch of other stuff. But in the meantime, I'd like to invite you to connect with us. Connect with us at broadcastteamalpha.com and click on our YouTube link so you can subscribe to our YouTube page and you'll be notified every time we have a show. We have something new. Big shout out to everybody in the chat room. There's Thunder and Matthew and who else, Tom? Nancy?
Yeah, we've got Nancy. We've got, it's almost like Captain Kangaroo here. We've got Todd, a person named Two Jet Lang.
Todd, that's what I missed. Happy birthday, Todd. Happy birthday, Todd. So there's one thing new in our chat room, and it's called Super Chats. Tom, do you want to explain what Super Chats are? Tom, are you muted?
I'm here. Hit me.
Do you want to explain what the Super Chats are?
Oh, the Super Chats. Well, that's a YouTube thing where you folks, if you feel like you really like what we're doing, you want to tip us through the chat system, they've got the Super Chat button. Click that, and if you feel really generous and you want to throw a couple bucks our way, you can do it through the Super Chat. So we would appreciate that. That helps offset our costs for our giant research center, our giant interplanetary galactic radio antenna system. So we have to offset all those costs. So that would be helpful.
All right.
Oh my goodness, that's funny. And the Medibed, we still need the Medibed.
That is correct. We have a Medibed expense too.
That is correct.
That's right.
So Aage, how are you tonight? You're looking well and handsome. And
well, yeah, I've come right off the Star Trek, on the Enterprise.
Of course.
Well, we're going to talk about that later on in the second half of the show, but for right now, ignore the shirt because we're going to talk about other stuff.
Right. Tom, how are you doing? Funny man tonight.
I'm doing wonderful. This is great. I'm just excited for no reason. Absolutely no reason. I'm just a happy guy.
You know what? That's a wonderful thing. Being excited for no reason. That's That's actually one of the magical tools to law of attraction is to be excited or to be content or to be happy for no reason. But we're going in a different direction. We're supposed to be talking about ascension and call it whatever word makes sense to you, because if you look at the world and you look at what's going on, you're going to call it something. For the purpose of tonight's show, we're going to call it Ascension. We're going to call it the shift. We're going to talk about the change that's happening, not just collectively, but that's happening to us individually. So, Aage, I know earlier you were talking about the science behind Ascension. You want to talk a little bit about that? Or?
Well, yeah, I could start out. It kind of seems like a lot of people are expecting something to happen because it feels different. You compare now to 10, 20, 30 years ago, I mean, it's a different world. Mm-hmm. And we are growing into a direction which we really don't know what is. We kind of have a suspicion that maybe there is some things down there that we can keep our eye on, but we don't know. And this, I think, is coming from a raising of the frequency of the vibration. Even the Schumann resonance is going up with spikes. Mm. It used to be about 7.8 or something like that for thousands of years. Now they got constantly spikes to well over 100. And all of this is pointing to a raising of the vibration. And when you're talking, there are websites out there now we are going to the fifth dimension. Well, if you look at ascension, the word itself, you ascend to something, but where do we go? You ascend into something. Well, do we even want to go there? Because we know from quantum physics that realities are separated by vibrations. And there's a frequency range here where we are. Up above there's another frequency range of another existence. And above there goes on, we've heard 12 or maybe more different dimensions. And we know there is something above us in vibrations because we see all these photos out there by dead folks that are caught on camera and they actually show up. Yes. So they are somewhere where we can't see them.
Yes.
So it's a frequency shift then, Aage, is what you're saying.
Yeah, it changes the frequency. And the camera somehow is able to catch that higher vibration. So we see those pictures, and the pictures date back, 100 or so years and before Photoshop or anything like that. So yeah, it's there. And the fifth dimension, which we think we are raising ourselves into, I'm not so sure it's a good place to be because that's where the ghosts are trapped.
Are you sure? Did you fact check that?
Yeah, I guess I should look. Where should I look, Nori? I don't even know where to look for that.
I don't know, but who says that the ghosts are on 5D?
If we are in 4D right here, we're told that we live in a three-dimensional world, right?
Right.
Well, that's length, width, and height. That's 3-dimensional. Now you got a box, and nothing happens in that box unless you add the fourth dimension to it, which is time.
Right.
So now we are in the fourth dimension. If we are ascending into something, 5 comes after 4, right? So that's kind of logical. We should end up there.
But in the world of quantum possibilities, why can't we just skip 4?
That's where I was going. You're thinking ahead of me, because if we don't like it in the fifth dimension, I think we will have the ability to even raise ourselves within the fifth dimension to possibly the sixth, where we can have a little more pleasurable existence.
So you said something before, and it just flew out of my head. Yeah. I need one of you guys to bail me out here.
Well, it's interesting. There's a lot of lore about Ascension. There is a lot of New Age lore about Ascension. Now, you were just talking about these different dimensions, and I'm hearing all these different dimensions. Then I see people posting stuff on Facebook that says, well, I'm already in the other dimension. I'm already there and waiting for you folks to get. And I'm like, okay, all right. So this seems to be, at this moment on our experience level, is that it is largely a personal experience that people are experiencing at different levels. And
thank you.
Does that make sense? Yeah. And that we're all going to ultimately get to whatever this next level is. So we're in this process, does that make sense?
Yeah,
yes.
Absolutely.
And that reminds me of what you had said, Aage. You said it's not an event, right? That's like going to happen. And I tend to agree with that based on everything that I look at and some of the people that I listen to. We're doing it on our feet. That's all of the stuff that we're seeing, no matter how we perceive it from our lenses, it's happening now. And the shift, the ascension, the awakening is a process that we do while we're standing on our feet going through our day. I totally believe that. You guys?
Now, you mentioned something, I think, on one of our other shows. You said something about this dawning of the age of Aquarius, and you said it's coming up next month. There's a particular date coming for this?
I don't know what date it is, but we're moving into the astrological sign of Aquarius. But the planetary alignment, and I am not an astronomer, this is, it's very imperfect. The way that the planets are aligned have not been aligned like this, like in I don't know how long. But this is a very special moment that has been predicted based on astronomy and some other things that are probably too woo-woo for me to mention. So we're moving into the Aquarius that the songs were made of, right back in the 70s. Yeah.
So people People are talking about this, so we're getting a lot of spiritual talk overlap with science overlap. And then one of the things I've heard discussed is this giant amount of energy coming from the galactic core. Is that something you're familiar with?
Yeah, it seems like what I saw is that there is a spike coming out from the center of the galaxy where there's supposed to be a black hole in there. Actually, these black holes aren't really black, they're more like white because of the light. But this spike coming out there, that is a very high vibrational energy, directed energy. And every 26,000 years, we are going around the great circle around the galaxy, and we are passing through this little spike of energy.
Are we not also going up through the galactic plane? Like if it's a big platter, as far as I understand, Earth is also passing up through the plane. So we're actually in that, from what somebody had said, and I could be wrong, so you guys help me here, is that the Earth is actually, our solar system is actually passing up through this higher concentration of energy as well. Does that sound like?
Well, I don't know, you can explain that one, but when you're passing through that disk, then you're passing into that spike of energy, then it raises the vibration. And the people that are ready for it, then they are ready to leave. They can leave the fourth dimension. And when you're passing through, then you are back with the people that wasn't high enough in vibration to be able to leave. They're left behind, and then you got to do another 26,000 years.
Right.
So,
and I've heard that there, according to the law of one channeling, they said that there were only about 300,000 people that were ready to do that out of our class of souls. There weren't that many people ready to actually make that kind of a transition, and that will all be coming back again. So I'm not sure if that's true or not. I don't know.
I have no idea of the number, but there are some that's going to.
It depends on your intention. I mean, if we get to create our reality, well, then what's our intention about this? And that's why I mentioned before that it's happening right now, because if we treat it like it's happening right now, then we're always in the process of raising our vibration. If we were waiting, for like summer vacation and we're going to diet for the next 6 weeks and we're waiting for vacation's really not going to come. So it's incumbent upon us to look at every single interaction that we have during the day and always just try to move ourselves to a place of neutrality or comfort, or at least not angst, because that is giving off our vibration. So some people, I mean, that's why the monks, in Tibet can levitate themselves. I mean, they have practiced it. They've practiced raising their vibration. And in our culture, we don't go into caves and do that, but there's a lot of misinformation, and there's a lot of information that's been left out about this time. And that's why we are sort of waiting for an event, right, when we're really, really in the event.
Where would we go to? Where would somebody go to get, quote, accurate information about what's happening? What are some good sources? I have a couple in mind, but maybe you could come up with some good sources.
Well, I think the Akashic records are probably the best place to go, because then you can see, first of all, what's going to happen, but you will also see what did happen.
Well, I'm talking about on this plane where we're at right now, for the new seeker, new hope for the newly awakened. Where can people go to really kind of start understanding what's happening, gaining the knowledge it takes to move forward?
Since it is a personal experience, I think they just need to go and read and study and watch videos, possibly what resonates with them at their level.
I'm with you there, Aage, totally. What I'm saying is there's a lot of stuff out there. There's a lot of stuff that looks really authoritative. Now, what does that mean? I'm talking about getting some good authoritative sources. Would that mean going back to some of the ancient Indian texts, some of that stuff, or is there something that people can go to now? Do you guys know of any websites or anything like that that's got good information?
So, no, this is a great topic. It's really important because there are people who are trying to capitalize, if you will, on the things that are going on the planet right now. So you have to be careful. You have to use your discernment. You have to check in with yourself. I mean, anytime that I worked with a coach or I called forth a teacher, right, and I called them forth with my desire. And every single time a teacher showed up in my life, I recognized them as a teacher. And that's what raising our vibration, if we skip all of the stuff that we usually run to, right? We're going to run to the TV, we're going to run to our friend, we're going to run to the person who usually has, the good 411. If we do something differently and go inward, that's the fastest way to raise our vibration.
Mm-hmm.
So skip the earthbound references and maybe start tapping into the cosmic connection is the idea, and get the answers that way.
I think that's a great answer, but there are between A and Z, you're going to find a bunch of other letters. So when you make the intention, okay, I want to figure out what this ascension stuff is about. I want to understand what it means to me, given my framework and my history and what I agreed to regarding my beliefs, right? That I agreed to before I come to the planet. This way, you don't have to change anything. You don't have to change your religion. You don't have to change your beliefs. You don't have to be afraid that you're working for the dark forces because you're looking at this stuff. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. So I think that does make sense. And I think we need to learn it goes back to the other things we've said about learning to trust your gut more, learning to listen to as the Christians would say, the small, still voice. In fact, somebody in the chat room talked about studying some of the emerald tablets of Thoth. There are some ancient scripts you can kind of go to start to look at some of this information. I think the thing is, what bothers me is what I see out there, people speaking very authoritatively about things that I don't know that you can be that authoritative to other people. Right. They have to experience it in order to understand it. I think that's really what needs to happen.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's where you have got to go inward and just use that spidey sense that you get. Like, you're in the bakery and all of a sudden you feel uncomfortable and somebody walks in and you haven't even seen this person, but you sense that there's something that makes you uncomfortable about them. Use that same discernment, right? When you see somebody all shiny and sparkly, barking, right, the next spiritual thing to do, right, just kind of tap in. Does it give you chills like somebody who sings off key? Does it make you uncomfortable because their decibels are too loud? Just if you check in with your body, and this is my belief, or this is what I came to do. So I came to bridge the gap between mainstream and spiritual, mainstream and woo-woo. And I've come to do it by helping people allow their body to guide them. Like, I love the quote in that Star Trek that we watched tonight. Right, we'll talk about this, but she said, my emotions advise my logic. They inform my logic. And that's what I'm asking for us to do more of, to, instead of falling prey to the emotion, because we can fall prey to so much emotion, right? If you watched the State of the Union last night, there's a small possibility that you could have avoided some of the hype. I mean, you have to be really balanced. And if you did, congratulations. You were looking at it from a higher perspective, but it's everywhere. So it's important for us to just follow what makes us feel balanced and makes us feel true and makes us feel connected.
Right. I think that there are a lot of people that claim to be channeling ETs or channeling the different entities and stuff. And to me, I think that that's fine for them, but to kind of inflict it on other people as if this is thus and so, and this is how it is, and this is how you get there from A to B. I think that's that kind of it invalidates the personal sensitivity. I mean, I'm not sensitive enough to figure that out on my own. I'm not sensitive enough to open up my own quantum receptors and hear from the cosmos. I think that's what you're saying, is that we need to hear from the cosmos about what we need to do, what I need to do personally to get there.
And a lot of times, though, we are learning from other people, even if we don't think we are. And what we should do in those people that we are learning from, we should look at them, their credibility, their history, and their humility. And if they have a lot of credibility with you, if they say they had personal experiences, you can consider that personal experience more than just a stranger you know nothing about.
True, very true.
So what we need to do is to, just like Nori says, go within and ask ourselves, that does this make sense to my heart, not just my head?
You just reminded me of one of our interviews we did recently with Richard Wagoner. He was talking about lucid dreaming, and one of the things he said is if you can't figure it out, to actually say in the dream, what is this all about, or give me the answer. And so that is part of this, I think. Stop asking everybody else. All right, everybody stop. I need to get quiet, and I need to turn on my receiver and then start interacting with that. If that makes sense?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That makes good sense. And for somebody who's never turned on their receiver, though, they're going, okay, what are you talking about? And if you find yourself in that place, you can, just put your intention out there. Okay, lead me to a book or lead me to a person. And then if you follow your intuition, if you follow your gut, you're going to end up where you've asked to be. So for some people,
I think we have to be open-minded. Yeah. I'm sorry.
This learning process we're talking about here is actually a precursor or kind of necessary for the purpose of ascension. And a part of the concept of ascension is supported by things that we are going to go through, whether we like it or not, like this spike of energy coming out from the center of the galaxy. We will be raised, but we may not be raised enough to be able to make the jump to the next vibration. But we have learned and we have studied and we have experiences, so we understand a little bit of the higher vibrations. Then we may be able to do that. And I think that is one of our missions to do this time around. I'd rather not come back to this ball of mud called Earth. I've had enough of it. This will do it.
Okay.
You know what they said in the Law of One? They said that the people that don't think they are probably the ones that will. And the ones that think they will probably won't.
Oh, no.
So you're probably not coming back, Aage. So that's good.
Yeah, no, I'm not coming back.
No. Okay.
But when we were talking about ascension, what we have been talking so far about ascension is more or less what is happening without electronics. Then there's another way for the purpose of ascension using electronics. And that is what I would presume that the alien races that is coming from higher vibrations, coming down here, visiting, we could see them in their light ships flying around and then suddenly fading out. They're going somewhere. And like there's this place in Hessedal in Norway, which is they see these light ships flying around all the time, long cigar shaped, lit up like a candle. And they can see them coming in and they just fly around a little bit and then just fade out and they go. So they go somewhere. They go probably to a higher vibration and out of the fifth or the sixth or maybe higher vibrations. This is probably electronics. I also saw a video that in fact is in that Chinese website, UFO website, that they have a large ship over one Chinese city. You can see it flying around and suddenly there's a flash of light and it disappears.
So if your ascension isn't going quick enough, just ask for extraterrestrial intervention.
Hey, there you go. But there is an electronic way to do this also. And there are some races that has figured out how to do that so they can transcend different vibratory existences.
I don't think it's complicated.
So I guess in summary, we got to check our sources. We need to vet sources. It's the triangulation of information. You start to, you may go to somebody that, like Aage said, has good reputation. Okay, I'm listening to this person and hear what they said. And this lines up with some of these ancient texts that go beyond biblical. And I think what you have to have is an open mind that says, okay, maybe everything I know is wrong, because some of this is completely upside down according to my religious beliefs I was raised with. And so we have to begin to say, okay, what if, oh, really? Wow. And I think one of the things I read that really kind of helped me was in the Law of One. And if you're curious out there and want to check it out, it's just another source. There's some interesting stuff in there. I don't know, it's just another source. And they said that it's all about the service to others versus service to self. And the more we do service to others, the more we will raise that vibration. So it's about the positive side of life, being happy, enjoying life, service to others. And if we lean that direction, that's really all you need to do is just lean that direction. Just keep going in that direction and avoid the other direction. So Ascension is different in that it's not like the concepts of a lot of religions that talk about, when you die, you're going to go to hell if you haven't been good enough, or you didn't do this or that, you didn't follow these religious rules. This is more on everything I'm learning. The cosmic laws are much simpler than the complex religions we have inflicted on ourselves over centuries. That the cosmic laws are much simpler, and they're a lot more tolerant of who we are. That this place where we're at right now on this planet is a place of testing and learning. And it wasn't meant for the ultimate summation of your life to be crushed and put into an eternal hell. It was for you to grow, and if you fail, you dust yourself off, you forgive yourself, and move on. And I think that's part of this process.
And that's the intention for your timeline, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. For all of us, I would imagine that we learn our lessons and then we grow, right? We grow up and we move on.
I don't see it as having to come here to live lessons, to learn lessons. I mean, I guess technically that's what we're doing. Technically that is what we're doing. But I don't feel like there's a one size fits all, everybody has to go through this lesson and that lesson, because it's not true. We all go through different experiences that are coming forth from our intention, from our spirit, from what we think all the time.
Well, I wouldn't say that there's the same set of lessons for everyone, because according to everything I've learned about reincarnation, what if it were true, which seems to be scientifically proven. There are books out there about this where there's been case studies, etc. So I have a tendency to believe that reincarnation is true. And that being said, whatever lessons I failed previous lives, I may be carrying the weight of those through karma, the inaction and action, and I need to forgive myself for the different things. So there are things that I'm supposed to be doing now in this particular round that I need to get kind of straightened out, that I haven't done in whatever thousands of other lives I may have had. This is that moment now. If we're going to be going into
how do you know what you have to work on? How do you know?
The universe brings it to me automatically.
How does it show up? How do you know that, like, oh, this is a lesson? I mean, how does it show up for you?
I think just being sensitive to say, okay, here's an area where I'm failing. There's something here that I need to learn. Here's an area where I'm succeeding. And that's in itself can be a lesson. The positives and the negatives are indicators to me about my life's journey. I think everybody has that. I mean, you don't hit hopefully you don't hit your thumb twice with the hammer. You try to avoid it next time. So there's these growing processes that are part of, I think, each round. And everything I've learned, and maybe you guys can help me here, of everything I've learned thus far is that I'm supposed to be the different challenges that come along. The guy that bumps me in the grocery store and I get angry. Guess what, Tom? That was a little lesson there. You're supposed to. You're not supposed to be that. You're not supposed to be that guy. Right. So these are when I say lessons, there is this constant honing process to bring us towards this moment where we could possibly ascend.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I guess what I don't understand, though, is what you mentioned before, where some people are like, oh, yeah, I'm woke. I'm ascended. I'm in 5D. I'm like, well, how do you know? Wait, is there like a checklist? We don't really know. We don't really know.
Exactly. No, I would tend to agree with you right there. So I would think the idea then would be to try to lean as positive as possible.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think, okay, lean as positive as possible. That sounds like such a leap for some people, depending upon what they're going through. It's okay to just go neutral.
Okay. I've got no problem with that. But when I say this, I mean, in some of these discussions and readings and whatnot and research, blah blah blah, the idea is that some people are going to be more service to self versus service to others. So this is my understanding. So if we leaning positive isn't complicated, it's checking ourselves, finding out, being nicer.
Yes.
That's leaning positive.
Right.
Dropping my
Right.
road rage,
So when
that kind of thing.
I think too that
what?
if
Road rage?
Well, road rage is not going to be a very good positive move.
I think too that everything that happens to us here on this ball of mud is not predetermined, so that we are going to go through it whether we like to or not. A lot of the things that we end up doing, I think, was made as a decision at the spiritual level for us to do while we're doing it.
Absolutely.
Now, there are also some things that we come here with a predetermined mission or something that we want to do. While we are in spiritual existence, we make the decision, I want to do that again, or I want to do that particular thing. I want to feel how that feels. And then we come here with that purpose to do that. So there are some things like that. But a lot of the things that we end up going through was made spiritually. According to quantum physics, the brain does not make decisions. It is the thoughts come from deeper than that. It comes from the quantum area of the brain. So that's where the decisions are, because according to quantum mechanics, again, there is no randomness in the macro world. That is only in the micro world.
Well, I agree. And I see this overlap immediately with what you're saying, with what some people are saying, that they are star seeds. I happen to believe I might be one. And that we have come back here, incarnated here for this moment of ascension, that we're here to help other people do that. I happen to have this sense, and I have talked to other people, and I've done some personal study on things that have happened to me, and I have a sense that maybe something like that has occurred to me, that I made a decision to come back at this time, and other people have too. The problem is that we go through this forgetting coming here, and you basically have to remember who you are and why you're here. And I think once you understand your sense of purpose, it helps with all those decisions.
Yeah. And then reincarnation, of course, it does not necessarily have to be in the fourth dimension. You could reincarnate it into the fifth dimension if you are ready for it. Or, in fact, what I saw is that you can choose the time to reincarnate to in physical perspective. You could decide, I want to reincarnate into a time when the pirates were really having a great time down in the Caribbean, 300 years ago. But you could, if that's the case, since outside of the physical time does not exist, you could also reincarnate into the future. So that is what it says in the Akashic records. You could do that.
Okay. But I'm talking about in reference to Ascension, though, that people have made claims, and I've thought about this. I've said, well, maybe that's my case. I don't know for sure. I'm still kind of on a path of discovery about this for myself, but I sensed something that made sense, that resonated with me about this, and I'm kind of learning some of this stuff on my own, about my own, who I am and where I've come from and what that means.
And if you find that you relate to a certain word like starseed or indigo, I mean, that could be a cue to go ahead and look there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, a lot of people can find what they're looking for in their religion of choice. It's there, but you just have to look at it from a different perspective because it's a little covered up.
Yeah, I think, and there are many of us that have difficulty with religions of any kind, including New Age religions. So this is where there's some filters in place that may stop us from actually saying, oh, okay, well, this is a great concept. I can buy into this whole idea of ascension, that maybe you've said, okay, I was raised in religion, and you know what, I don't need a New Age religion now. However, according to what Aage's been talking about, what you've said too, is a lot of this has no religious affiliation whatsoever. There's no religion. There is a genuine spiritual component to mankind. There is a spiritual essence to who we are, our consciousness, and understanding how that evolves up in the universe is very critical, especially at this time.
It is critical. It is critical. Yeah. And I think, I try to keep it really simple so that look in your life and find out what is the hot thing that is annoying you? What is that thing that's hurting you? What is it about the contrast in a relationship that keeps rubbing you the wrong way? So though if you look at all of those as a calling, right,
those are the tests. Those are
exactly.
Okay, those are the little tests I'm talking about right there. Yeah.
Yes. I love that. And it's so funny because sometimes, I want to get all my ethnic nationality, and I'll go, oh yeah, that's right. I can't do that. Right. I want to raise my vibration. Right. Okay.
Right. And we can bring it down pretty quick. We don't have any problem.
One of these days, I'm going to ask you for some details on that one.
Yeah. No. So, but and some people. I don't even want to talk about what other people think. I just, for me, vibration is the way that I am expressed, on this earthly plane. I am energy and it vibrates, and I have a choice over how that energy vibrates. And if somebody would have told me that way back in the day when I would choose things that would bring my vibration down, I'd say, no, I didn't choose this. But as I look, right, you were talking about the lessons, that every situation that I did choose for myself, even though some of them seemed scary, they were perfect. They were perfect. And it's not that we're not going to go through the storms, because we are, but it's a matter of how do you navigate the storm? Right?
How do you respond to them? It's also how we respond. Do we freak out? Okay, still stuck in fear. Or, no big deal. I'm going to get through it,
Right. Mm-hmm. Well, and here's one thing that is amazing. If you're breathing, if you are focusing on your breathing, you can't stay scared. So if you feel fear, and there's a lot of things that could look kind of scary out there right now, if you feel fear, you can just use your hand. You can inhale for 4 and then exhale for 8. I don't know if you guys can see that. Inhale for 4 and exhale for 8. And by putting your hand on your fingers, it helps to distract you. And then when you focus on the breathing, you'll notice that fear and conscious breath can't occupy the same space. And I think that's really important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, this has been great. I think this is something that's really pertinent for getting clarity on this, and I'm really glad we talked about this tonight. Moving on, because we're kind of like past our half-hour point on the show. Yeah, but this has been great. But we also wanted to talk about our little sci-fi segment tonight. So we're going to talk about Star Trek Discovery, and let's do a little slide switch here. We've all been reviewing our own take on the Star Trek Discovery TV show. And you guys all know I'm a sci-fi fan. I love sci-fi. And so they've rebooted yet another version of Star Trek called Star Trek Discovery. But it takes place in the same timeline as the Captain Kirk era, except now we got massively cool special effects. We've got new storylines. We've got new sidelines. We've got new story arcs. All kinds of things happening. What are some of you guys' impressions?
Wow.
I don't know where to start. I've watched 2.5 of those movies so far, and I'm in love. This was wonderful. And I tell you that this goes back decades when Star Trek kind of came about as a concept. Whenever I saw a Star Trek movie, it felt like home.
Wow.
And of course, later on, I could understand that because I did a time regression under hypnosis, and I found myself on one of those ships, not necessarily looking like that, but it was a long tube that was miles and miles long, and it never landed on a planet. It was always in space, and I spent my whole life on that ship. So maybe some of those feelings are just being pulled back into this one. So that's why it feels like whenever I see a space movie, it feels like home.
Well, I love the interpersonal relationships. I was particularly struck by the relationship with the captain and number one. And it was interesting because that was my first thought when I was watching the first one. Then when I was watching the second one, and they went back and showed how number one came to work on the ship. I just got so distracted. I'm sorry.
So, right. So this, now I don't think you've seen the entire first season, but as it progresses, and here's simple recommendation: find a way to get the first season before you watch the latest season, because it probably won't make as much sense. You'll see a lot of stuff going on, but it's not going to make the kind of sense it will if you go ahead and find a way to see the first season. And I think it's on Netflix. I think it's you have to pay extra on CBS All Access, whatever. There are other ways to find it that I'm not going to go into here, but definitely do what you can to kind of take a look at the first season. You got to see the first several episodes, set the framework for what's happening now. And there are some great concepts. Right now we've got a slide up of one of the Klingons. These guys have elongated skulls, and they speak in their own language, which I'm glad they do, because I kind of get tired of science fiction where every ET you meet speaks English. And they do that on the Orville, and it's a little more light. It's Star Trek light, a little more fun. But in the Star Trek universe, it's a little more realistic, where people are meeting ET races and they have their own languages, and so that's one of the. I
liked how they could break into English when they needed to.
You're right, exactly. Yeah. Make sure you got the subtitles on for the Klingons, though, because it's important. Otherwise, you're watching these guys go through an entire discussion, and you're like, okay, what did they say? I'll just try to play along, and you can't. You'll miss something. So it's good to see the coarse nature of the Klingons. I mean, we had Worf in Star Trek Next Generation, and they never really explained until I think one episode why they had all the deformities. Well, now these guys are totally deformed in this version, and it's I think it lends a more realism to their ET nature.
Is that with the turquoise eyes? With the turquoise eyes,
just
that guy?
The deformed skulls, all the Klingons. Yeah.
Oh yeah. They're quite interesting looking, though. When it started with the Klingon addressing all the other Klingons, they did a close up of his face, and it was fascinating, really. But I'm back now. I love the relationship between the captain and number one, because even in the first installment of it, you can see. Thank you. Yeah. You can see that their relationship is built on trust, and it turns out that they've been working together for 7 years. And I love the way that the characters portray, like when the captain is putting her feelings aside in order to do what's right for number one, who she's grooming.
Right, and then you're going to see as you go along that that's going to change. I'll give you that.
Well, I did notice that in the second one. There was some contrast going on there.
Yeah.
No Ascension for them.
But you're going to see, though, I actually kind of had that same feeling as I began to watch this, but you're going to see towards the end of the first season that a lot of that's going to change for you. You're going to see that there was a little more going on with the entire storyline than what they led on to begin with at the outset. At the outset, it doesn't seem to have that kind of depth, and I think you're going to see something as you go that is going to actually make you feel better about that.
Well, it's interesting because I'm drawing like loose conclusions about loyalties on the crew and who's with who, and if
initial
it hits
impressions,
the fan, what's going to happen? Yeah. I'm sorry, Aage.
Yeah, I noticed something that I just really fell in love with the concept of, and that is that they were on a ship going into space, trying to find new worlds and exploring. And there were one thing that they said in there that I just couldn't help it. I had to write it down. And there was I think it was the captain that said, being afraid of everything, then we learn nothing.
That was so good. Yeah.
And that is exactly, that relates to our life today. If you're going to succeed, don't be afraid to fail, because failure is a part of success. So now chances are failure in space is a little more serious than it would be, here. But failure, it is nothing to be afraid of, because it is just, if you find that you failed at something, you just found one way it won't work. It's not a failure.
Right. It just opens up other possibilities.
Well, this is something I think that they were, based on what you're saying there, Aage, this is a success of the franchise, that they've kind of carried through some of these loftier concepts.
Yes.
They were it was Star Trek that introduced everybody to the Prime Directive. They were the ones that brought that whole thing into popular conversation. And so I see exactly what you're saying. And Nori quoted the one quote. It's interesting too. They made what we call in writing, they call it the hero's journey. The hero in this series is this woman, Michael Burnham, and she's got her father's name as Michael. So there's a twist there. And she winds up in this calamitous moment of bad decisions that cave in on her, and now she's climbing her way out of it. And there's all these other things in play. I love the multiple story arcs that are going on all at the same time. It keeps it interesting. And the writing is really well done. Yeah.
Her relationship with Sarek, that's her teacher, right?
Her adopted father. That's Spock's,
that's her adopted father.
Right. So Nori's new to this. So Sarek is Spock's father. He's his real father. Okay. And so Sarek married a human woman. And so Spock, born of a human woman, is half human, half Vulcan. They picked up Michael, the woman, the key character in this series. They picked her up on a planet that had been destroyed by another ET race that had been raided. And so they brought her and adopted her and raised her as a Vulcan. And so she's going through this struggle of learning how to be human, because Sarek was very hard on her and was extremely difficult with her and didn't allow her to have her humanity. And so she's trying to find that side of herself.
Well, and I love the interaction between them, and I mean, there's a lot of really great quotes in both of those. The one that I really like the most is, this was when she was going out, right? I don't want to give it away. She's going out to do battle, and the captain said, "Sometimes the universe allows for the making of unexpected memories." Like, oh my God, that's so true. It's so great.
There's some great quotes in the whole series. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. So I've enjoyed it immensely.
We can imagine too, going into space like this, you go into another world and there is life on this planet or anywhere else in the universe where there is life. There's going to be different creatures. There's going to be different cultures and species, and we'll have different customs. So we have to, when we are coming in as a visitor, we have to relate to them. We shouldn't expect them to be able to relate to us. So one thing I noticed that aliens, or even in the movies, I've never seen a Grey or anyone like that shake hands. Shaking hands to say hello is a human trait. From what I understand, there's nowhere else in space where they actually do that.
That's interesting you mentioned that, Aage, because in the 90s TV show Stargate SG-1, they did a great job of tying a lot of ufology, even old fables, the King Arthur tales. They tied it all together. They tied the Norse ET connection. They tied it all together, and they actually have an episode where one of those lead characters is shaking hands with one of the Greys, and he does exactly what you said. He's looking at him like, "What are you trying to do here? What is your why is your hand out?" So you're absolutely right. I think that's an insightful look at who we are and what we would be like in space.
Mm-hmm. Well, and of course, I loved where Sarek healed her. Right, he brought her back to life. Number one. And that was great. And I loved his words, so I had to write them down. My mind to your mind, my thoughts to your thoughts come back. And she did.
Yep, she came back.
That's some powerful intention right there.
Well,
And then we the med bed.
Exactly.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is worthy actually talking about, because from what we're hearing from some people that came back from the secret space program, there is such a thing.
So do we have another soft disclosure? First episode in the series. First episode, you know, Michael Burnham is burned by the radiation of this radiation that's going on. They drop her into a med bed, and she's almost halfway healed, and then decides to run back to do her job, kind of a workaholic thing. I think I would have stayed in the bed. I think I would have finished out the treatment. Yeah. But yeah, the med bed's part of their world.
Well, we've interviewed people like Randy Cramer, right, who's gone to Mars and come back. He's a Marine Corps captain, who it was not a soft disclosure. It was a bold disclosure that these things are really, really happening. And you can find Randy's interview on Broadcast Team Alpha YouTube. And we have a lot of people supporting some of the concepts that we're just kind of laying out a little bit tonight. Jordan,
he's not the only. There's probably about 5 or 10 people now that has come forward and say, I've had it, I got to talk about this, there is a secret space program, I was part of it, and here are some of the details.
Right. And we have been privy, right, to experiencers allowing us to interview them. You know, there are some things that they don't want to be put out for public viewing. There are some things about their experience that they don't want to share, but I encourage, I mean, if you've had an experience, if you think you've had an experience, if you had a dream that felt way too real, come talk to us. You can reach us on broadcastteamalpha.com, the contact page. We'll be happy to talk with you and see if there's an interview there. If you'd like to come chat with us, that would be fun.
Yeah, and even beyond that, if you have some goofy pictures, UFO photos, or pictures of anything that is far outside what is normal, we love to see it.
Absolutely. We would be more than happy. I know there are a few people in our chat room right now. A couple of people I know I've spoken to that have had some experiences. We'd love to hear your stories, and maybe there's a moment we can get you in for an interview of some kind if you want to talk about it. Absolutely. And, if you want to send UFO videos, too, if you've seen something, you got a video or something like that you want to send in, we'll find a way to get that on one of our shows. We probably need to take a show or something like that and to put that out there.
Yeah.
Or maybe we can dedicate one of the Sunday on Wednesday shows to taking phone calls from people who have had experiences. That would be really interesting.
I think so. I think absolutely that would be a very good idea. So we'll put that in the hopper and add that to our list of things to do. But kind of getting back to our Star Trek moment as the last half of our show, I highly recommend it. Find a way to get it. I think, in me, the evangelist of sci-fi, I think it's a great show to examine, along with the one we did last week, which was the Orville. And we talked about it earlier. We're probably going to wrap around and talk about this a little bit more, because both these shows now are going into their second season, and a lot of these shows don't really ramp up until the end of their second or their beginning of their third, to where they start to really get to the meat of their finding their voice, as it were. So I think definitely take a look.
And coming in as a newbie, I watched some of the Orville. Now I'm watching Star Trek, and I'm seeing like pieces of Star Trek that were pulled into the Orville. So I will definitely be talking about it again. Yeah.
Well, in the old Star Trek, the best we saw was Mr. Kyle making a little bowl of chicken soup for somebody. It was very limited replication, but now, with the way graphics and CGI works, there's no limit to anything. And so now it's interesting. Now we go beyond the difficulty of explaining these concepts into almost a routine. What do you call it? It doesn't seem like there's too much trouble for them to do a lot of what they're showing us. And this acclimation, I think that's what's happening with these shows, that replication, you can get yourself a couple of glasses of wine, you can get a shot of whiskey, or you can make clothes, or you can get flowers to give to your significant others. So it's becoming a normalization of these concepts. Does that make?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And for those out there that is still wondering a little bit if they really want to go and watch this, do like I did. Go to YouTube and watch some of the trailers. I think I watched 1 or 2 trailers, and there was no way I was not going to watch the real movie after that, because you see stuff that make you feel home, maybe.
Well, as you go into this first season, Aage, I know you're kind of coming new to this particular version of Star Trek. You're going to see them tapping into some organic concepts. That was like, when I saw this, they tap into this cosmic web, which we've heard some of the secret space people speak about. And so they introduced the concept in a kind of a Trekkie kind of way. They don't really say it, but there it is. So it's another one of those things you're going to see in this series.
Very cool. Very cool. And who knows, maybe you can pick up some Ascension tips, right? You can't learn it here. We'll learn it from Star Trek, how to keep your vibration up.
Actually, there are some. They you could see them touching on some of these concepts in the series. So I still got my attention. I'm seeing them touch on some stuff that I'm saying, really, you guys actually included that in here, really? Okay, all right, you still got me, because I think they whoever the writing team is that's involved in this, obviously I see some quality writing going on here, some quality direction going on. Yeah. And you're going to see multiverse. You're going to see multiverse happening, things like that. So I definitely, in fact, in this latest season, definite multiverse going on. So the latest episode touches on that. So definitely you're going to want to watch. Definitely. So.
Well, I'm not going to do the outro because I'm like tongue-tied tonight. Tom, will you take us out?
Okay, well, I appreciate everybody coming out. Thank you, everybody in the chat room. You guys rock. You're some of our solid fans. We definitely appreciate you for coming out and checking it out. Definitely, it's another moment to plug some of our other videos. We've got other videos out there that we really haven't even had time to promote. We've all got busy stuff going on, but if you would, take a look at some of our other videos. We've got some great interviews out there. Russell Targ. We've got Richard Wagoner. We've got, of course, Billy Carson. People love our Billy Carson interview. Check that out. Yeah. Take a look at some of our other videos. Like I said, there's so much going on right now. Actually, for us, this whole thing is kind of exploding for us. We have got some other things going on that are really opening up for us, and it's really gotten us kind of busy. So take a look at our other videos. I think you're going to find some great interviews on our channel, and we're going to keep them coming. So until next time, do either one of you have anything else? Anything else to add?
Just gonna say goodnight.
Okay. All right. With that, we're gonna hit the out button. All right. We'll see you guys next week.
Bye.
Okay. Hang on. I'm gonna give us all the ability to say goodbye. All right. Live long and prosper. That's right. Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, folks. We'll see you next week.